what I like about the full-view windshield is all the extra visibility an owner gets.
Yeah, Art. That curved A-post and the increased glass area sure makes a difference.
Right. This windshield glass area alone has been increased by 35%.
Well, I'll go along with what you and Tex say, Art, but I'm just wondering. Suppose I have to replace one of those new windshields, or the rear window for that matter. How much trouble am I going to have?
No more than usual, Joe. In fact, I think it's a cinch.
It's easy enough in my opinion, too. Are you asking to see the job done? Is that it?
Well, I sure like to know the ins and outs.
Okay. On the windshield, a lot of removal operations are still the same, even though outside moldings look different. 6 outside moldings are used. Along the bottom, notice that there are 3 flat belt molding sections instead of double moldings as before. All moldings fasten directly to the body, none attached to the weather strip. Remember to guard against scratches. Use a cloth on the hood. Put masking tape where a tool might slip. Use only a fiber wedge for operations that call for some leverage.
Okay, Art, I'll watch it.
Fine. Now, to remove the windshield, first remove the 4 screws that hold the side molding in place along the A-post. Remove the chrome cap that covers the joint at the top.
Under the cap, there is another screw to remove so you can lift off the side molding.
I see. What comes off next, then? The top molding?
Yeah, Joe. A concealed spring clip at the center still holds it in place. Lift up at the top edge and toward the front of the car. The clip and molding will quickly release from the header. 7 bolts and nuts hold the 3 lower moldings against the cowl panel. Also, there's a self-tapping screw at the outer end of each lower side molding.
You don't have any windshield wiper pivot covers to remove, Joe. Just the wiper blades and arms.
Okay, Tech. Will do.
Fine. Now, remove the screws at the outer ends of the lower side moldings. You get at them by opening the front doors. Then, remove the grill from the cowl vent opening.
Any trick to that?
Yeah. A little leverage will pop the grill out of the spring-type fasteners that retain it. But start at the end, not the corners. Be careful not to pull the clips loose from the grill.
All right. I see it now. It's easy.
Right. Now remove the 3 molding nuts inside the cowl vent opening. 1 in the center and 1 at each end. The 4 remaining nuts are located under the cowl side panel. You reach them from under the instrument panel. That lets you lift off the 3 lower molding sections. Unlock the weather strip next. Just insert the wedge in the locking seam and twist until the locking lip opens up. Slide the tool all around the entire windshield.
I guess this screwdriver would be too sharp to use, huh?
Yeah, Joe. Stay with the wedge. Don't risk damaging that locking seam. Otherwise, you'll never get the glass to stay in place and make a good seal.
Better put your gloves on. Then get inside and push out on the lower edge. I'll steady and catch the glass as you push it out. Always make the lower edge come out first.
Why the bottom edge first?
Well, the roof panel overhangs the opening. You'll bump it if you push the top edge out first. You might also bump into 2 small metal tabs welded to the header near the A-posts. The top chrome moldings attached to these tabs.
Clear enough, Art. Bottom out first.
Good. Start pushing out at either lower corner, then up the side. I'll hold and steady the glass as it comes out. Once the glass is free, help me put it on the bench.
Always use a piece of carpeting and a cloth-covered box to support that glass on the bench. It keeps the edges from chipping.
Good advice, Tech. And it reminds me of another point. When you remove a broken glass, look for the cause. It might be a stone break or a chipped edge. If it's neither one of those, the windshield opening may be out of line as a result of a collision. A high spot or wavy section in the metal fence can cause uneven pressure on the glass.
Oh, then I might have to check that, huh?
Yeah, Joe. But you can make a good quick check of the opening without removing the weather strip.
Tech's right. Notice that the glass groove lays open nicely and the weather strip conforms closely to the opening. So you would clean out the sealer. Then take a new glass, center it, and see how it fits into the weather strip and windshield opening. Any extreme high spot will show up. Make sure the glass contacts the weather strip evenly, all the way around.
If a high spot holds the glass out, remove the weather strip and check the fence. Grind off any high spots, straighten up any wavy sections.
You'll find more information on checking that opening another way in this reference book, Joe. Look it over when you get a chance.
Sure will, Art. Anything new on installation?
Yeah, here's how you install a weather strip. First, put a continuous bead of sealer in the fence groove. Then, starting at the corner, install the weather strip, making sure the molded corners fit snugly without stretching the rubber. When the weather strip's in place, install the glass. Insert the top edge of the glass first, making sure it's centered properly from side to side. With this new windshield weather strip, the glass will seal better if you don't use any soap solution.
Use the palm of your hand to tap the glass into place, Joe. With this new weather strip, the glass seats easily.
Good point, Tech. And it pays to take care when you use that wedge at the lip of the weather strip. Just work the lip over the glass. Never pry the glass into the weather strip. Once the top edge is seated, work down each side and then along the bottom. If the weight of the glass pushes the lip in, get somebody inside to hold the glass out slightly. Now, lay a bead of sealer in the glass groove all the way around. Then brush soap solution on a locking strip and use the butt end of the wedge to lock up the weather strip. Start across the bottom, up one side, across the top, and down the other side.
Then I suppose I reinstall the moldings, eh?
That's next, Joe. But you put them back in reverse order from the way you removed them. Art can give you the pitch.
You install the lower molding first. A gob of body sealer at each bolt hole in the cowl is good insurance against water leaks. Start the nuts, but don't tighten them. Then install the lower side moldings and tighten all nuts. Snap the top molding's concealed center spring clip into place. Start, but don't tighten the screw at each end of the top molding. Following this, slide the side moldings in place. Top ends go under the upper molding. Bottom ends go over the lower side molding. Start the screw at each A-post, then tighten the screw at each end of the top molding.
Install the two chrome caps over the joints between the side and top moldings. Then tighten all screws along the A-post.
Okay. Then do I reinstall the grill at the cowl?
Yep, it just snaps into place. Clean off all the excess soap and sealer next. And that's about it on a windshield job.
Golly, and I thought it was going to be a humdinger. Wasn't so hard after all.
Right, Joe. And other body service jobs are just as easy. But first, somebody please turn the record over. Then we can go into some service tips on the rear window.
Knowing how to take out and replace the windshield ought to give you some clues on rear window service, Joe.
Well, I guess so. Looks like the moldings are just hooked up a little different.
You put your finger on it, my boy, and there are only two things to keep in mind. First, the top and side moldings snap into a retaining groove in the weather strip. Second, the bottom moldings are held by nuts and bolts, like at the windshield.
Easy enough, Tech. I don't think it'll throw me.
You reach those lower molding nuts from inside the trunk, Joe. On most models, there are 9 nuts.
Don't miss the nut located well forward, near the lower corner of the rear window, above the top of the wheel housing. And there's a spring clip, too, that you can snap out once all the nuts are removed.
Unlock the weather strip, as before, and remove the glass. In this case, push the top edge out first and lift the lower edge out last.
I got you, Art. Any installing pointers?
Yeah, Joe, use soap solution in the glass groove. Then position the glass at the upper corners first, then the lower corners. Work the lip of the weather strip over the glass all the way around. Wipe off the excess soap. Then lay a bead of sealer in the glass groove all around the rear window. To lock the glass in place, brush some soap on the locking strip. Then start at the center of the upper edge and lock the top edge and sides first, the bottom edge last.
Locking the glass in place at the top first opens up the molding groove slightly, making it easier to install the upper moldings.
Okay, Tech. I suppose I use the sealer again, huh?
Yeah, and put body sealer at each of the lower molding attaching holes. After tightening down the nuts, cover them with sealer, too.
On some jobs, that recess across the deck will be full of sealer. Level it out to close the holes before you install the moldings.
All right. I think I'm going to be okay on windshield and rear window work.
Don't see how you can miss, Joe. Now, there's another body service item I'd like to talk about. The front door handle and lock cylinder have to be handled differently. You attach the handle, as before, but when it comes to the linkage, there's something new. The linkage between the handle and door latch assembly has been redesigned. You can adjust it from the rear face of the door.
Okay. Whereabouts?
Right here, Joe. This rubber hole cover just above the rotary latch.
Yeah, Joe, remove that cover first. Then loosen the screw that locks the two sections of latch linkage together. Shorten the linkage to remove too much free play at the handle, or lengthen it to free up linkage travel. Finally, tighten the lock screw. Now, to remove the outside handle, remove the garnish molding and loosen the rear section of the trim panel. This lets you remove the two handle attaching nuts. Next, you remove the latch linkage screw to disconnect the handle from the latch assembly. Got that?
Yep. With you all the way. But what about that lock cylinder?
Well, that lock cylinder is a lot easier to remove and replace, for one thing. The cylinder is still retained by a sliding latch plate.
But you're gonna need a special screwdriver.
Tech means this 90-degree bent screwdriver, Joe. And when you install the lock cylinder assembly, you won't have to use a pilot wire to guide it into place. The new lock cylinder has a short shaft that engages the latch actuator mechanism. Just put the cylinder in place so it engages the notch in the latch actuator lever and slide the latch plate into position.
Much easier to handle in my book, Art. Are the other models the same?
Not quite. On Imperial, Chrysler, DeSoto, and Dodge, the lock cylinder is attached to the door handle housing. You'll have to remove the door handle to service the lock cylinder.
Incidentally, Art, why not give Joe the story on adjusting the rear door glass on the new sports sedan?
Good idea, Tech. It sure is different. As the glass is lowered, it moves backward, away from the rear edge of the front door glass. The more it's lowered, the more it tips rearward. Then the front edge begins to lower faster than the rear edge until it's almost down. Finally, it moves slightly rearward at the fully down position. That new movement results from the specially shaped front and rear run channels. The center channel also helps guide the glass and keeps it from rattling. The center channel attaches to this support bracket. You can adjust the bracket at its lower end to tip the upper edge of the glass in or out.
To line up the front edge of the rear glass with the rear edge of the front glass, you shift the front and rear channels. To adjust glass travel, you can move both upper and lower stops. After any adjustment, Joe, check operation of the glass. Run it up and down. Make sure the nylon rollers ride smoothly in the channels.
Supposing they don't. Suppose the nylon rollers start binding up on me.
In that case, stop the glass right at the spot it begins to bind. Loosen the lower attaching screws of both front and rear channels. Then run the glass up and down several times again. The nylon rollers and channels will line themselves up for smooth operation. Last, tighten the lower channel screws.
Not bad at all. Any other adjustments?
Well, yeah, Joe. If the top edge of the glass stands away from the body or binds at the weather strip because it's into the body too much, you'll need to make an in or out adjustment. Just loosen the two attaching screws at the foot of the center channel support bracket. Then you move the foot of the bracket in or out to get a good fit between the top edge of the glass and the weather strip at the roof rail. Then tighten the screws.
Those adjustments seem fairly clear, Art. Now, is there anything I need to know about how to get that glass out in case it's ever broken?
Like all new designs, Joe, there are a couple of things you ought to keep in mind. As before, you remove the inside hardware, garnish moldings, trim panel, and the rain shield. Be careful when removing the rain shield. You'll want to cement it back in place later.
Right. Then lower the glass about halfway. Remove the two front channel attaching screws. To remove the front channel next, you pull it downward and toward the rear of the door. Then it will come out through the large access hole at the bottom of the inner panel. After this, remove the up stop screws and raise the glass all the way. Disengage the glass from the regulator arm and remove it.
Gotcha. And I just do that in reverse to install a new glass, huh?
Yeah, Joe. But don't forget to check its fit and operation before you leave the job. You might have to make a few adjustments.
Okay, will do. Anything else?
There's more, all right. For example, the door frames on some models of DeSoto and Chrysler and on all Imperial model four-door sedans have extruded aluminum door frames above the belt moldings. These extruded frames extend down and inside the door, forming front and rear glass run channels. To remove the glass, the aluminum extrusions must come out first.
But don't let that worry you, Joe. It's all explained in this reference book, along with some other mighty valuable tips.
Feel better already, Tech. I'll be sure to study the book.
Attaboy. Let's all get sharp on the 1957 body service for a flying start on keeping our cars beautiful. Believe me, that's as good as money in the bank.